Hi, and welcome back to Becca Babbles podcast. I'm your host, Becca. I'm a certified personal trainer, holistic health coach, and future chiropractor on my way to figuring out this thing we call life. Now, let's get babbling. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Becca Babbles podcast. I'm your host, Becca, and this week is going to be all about gut health. I'm really excited to share this episode. I kind of teased it on my Instagram probably a while back, but I'm currently in the Nutrition Master's program through my chiropractic school at Parker University, and I got to do a deep dive into gut health, and you guys were interested in hearing what I learned from that. And so I wanted to combine some of the information that I've learned throughout my schooling, and then in addition to what I learned in that nutrition master's program, and kind of give you guys a deep dive into like what the gut microbiome is and what it means to have your gut out of balance, or what does leaky gut even mean. I feel like the gut microbiome has not been a buzz term, but is something that people are really interested in right now. A lot of people are like, you should take this probiotic, take this probiotic. Should you have fiber or not? And I wanted to give you guys a podcast that would help explain exactly what the gut microbiome is, why leaky gut is something that you should watch out for and take care of if you do have, and how to prevent that and move going forward, because just taking a probiotic isn't going to fix everything. You're going to have to do other things. A probiotic is still a supplement that you are just supplementing your diet with. It's not going to fix the types of foods that you are eating, which are probably causing the leaky gut or the dysbiosis that you have. So, first off, I just want to go through talking about exactly what the gut microbiome is. So, in your gut, which is actually in your small intestine. So a lot of people think your stomach is the organ that allows for you to absorb all the nutrients, because everyone's like, oh, my stomach is so full after I ate whatever meal. And that's actually not what happens. Your most of your nutrients gets absorbed in your small intestine, which is right after your stomach. In your small intestine, you have a host of bacteria that is in your small intestine. Now, you actually want bacteria in your small intestine. A lot of people freak out and think bacteria automatically means bad, because we're in society, we think that we need to be 100% clean all the time, but there's different forms of bacteria. There's actually 4 different forms specifically. So there's commercialism, which is where they live with you peacefully, but they don't actually do anything for you. There's symbiotic forms, where these are the gut bacteria that you actually want in your small intestine, because these will help you digest the foods that you're eating. This will help you absorb nutrients that you are eating from your food, and this will also help with your immune system. Now, there are other bacterias like pathogens, and these are the ones that you typically think of where people are saying you need to wash your hands to make sure you don't get sick. These are the type of bacteria that you kind of want to stay away from, because they could cause acute harm to your body. The last type of bacteria is pathobiotics. These behave, but until something throws them off, they can cause harm to your body. So they're not as bad as pathogens, but they're not as good as the symbiotic bacteria that you want in your gut. And these could be turned on by like you having extreme stress in your life, certain foods that you're eating, stuff like that can cause you to have different types of bacteria. Now, your small intestine actually has up to 3 to 4 pounds of bacteria in it. I'm pretty sure they say you have like more bacteria in your body than you do skin cells, which is kind of crazy. And the type of bacteria that you get in your gut microbiome is shaped by like how you were born. So like, did you go through the birth canal when your mom gave birth to you? What were you fed? What do you eat on a consistent basis? How are your stress levels throughout your day? Are you taking time to like sit, take a couple breaths, then eat your food? Or are you hurrying and eating your food while you're on the drive to school or something? And then, like, have you had a history of antibiotics? Consistent antibiotic use has been shown to not only kill the bad bacteria, but also the good bacteria. So it's important that you replenish the bacteria that you have with good bacteria, because once those bacteria are gone, any bacteria can come in as they're choosing. And then also, like, what is your hygiene like? And even your emotions can affect and shape your gut microbiome. Now, when I first learned about this, I was like, oh no, like, what if I wasn't born through the birth canal? Or like, I have a really stressful lifestyle while being in school. And like, what if like midterms, like, completely throws off my gut? The thing is that your gut microbiome will change within an hour of your lifespan. So, like, you have control of how your gut microbiome is every day that you wake up. And by the time you go to sleep, your gut microbiome is going to be completely different. But it's almost like your gut microbiome is telling a story of your body. So, like, it tells the story of like the environment you grew up in, or if you were breastfed or formula fed, past infections that you've had. These will all shape how your gut microbiome is functioning right now. So you want to make sure that your gut is in a healthy place so that it can actually absorb all the nutrients that you're taking in. I think the biggest thing that people get frustrated with is they're like, I'm eating all these healthy foods, but I don't understand why I don't have all the energy people are saying I'm supposed to be having by eating healthy, or like my digestion isn't that great. It might not be because you're eating the wrong foods, but you're eating the wrong foods for you at this certain time. And your body's not able to absorb the nutrients that you're taking in. And your body might need to change its microbiome a little bit more than someone else who just started. So give yourself a break and like it takes some time. Now, there's different ways that your gut can like fall out of balance. I'm doing that in like quotations, but dysbiosis is commonly confused with leaky gut. So I want to define the differences between them. Gut dysbiosis is basically where you have an imbalance between the good bacteria and the bad bacteria. So when I was talking about like symbiotic bacteria versus pathogenic bacteria, maybe you have more pathogenic bacteria compared to symbiotic bacteria. Or it could even be the pathobiotic bacteria, where it's like they're not necessarily doing anything bad, but when your gut is thrown off, they can cause harm. So maybe you have more of those compared to the symbiotic bacteria. Or maybe you just have a ton of commercialism bacteria where they're just like hanging out there and not really giving you much benefit. We want as much symbiotic bacteria as we can so that can help us build up the kind of gut microbiome that will help us absorb nutrients and help us digest our food. So, gut dysbiosis can be caused by many things. The most common triggers of gut dysbiosis is overuse of antibiotics, especially if you're getting this through like animal products or like foods that were treated with antibiotics. Another common trigger is the standard American diet, or the what people call the SAD diet. This is because it is typically really high in artificial sweeteners and also really low in fiber. Fiber is really important for our guts because it allows us to build up what is called short chain fatty acids. This is because fiber is like a prebiotic for our body. A prebiotic fiber is like a non digestible food that encourages these beneficial species of bacteria to grow, which will then make these short chain fatty acids. Some benefits of these short chain fatty acids is that they suppress the pro inflammatory pathways that are protective for people who have irritable bowel syndrome. These pathways are important because if we have too much inflammation going on in our body, it's almost like your body is constantly on alert of like this fight or flight situation where it's just trying to like cool down the fire. There's a ton of fire going on right now, and so your body's trying to cool down the fire. So it's not able to absorb the nutrients that you're taking in when you're trying to eat a healthy diet. These short chain fatty acids can also help strengthen the tight junctions that are in between your cells and reduce intestinal permeability, which is basically what leaky gut is. And I'll get into that in just a sec of what that is. But your cells almost have like, remember when people would wear the shoes that have the stickies on them? I'm forgetting the name of them. The Velcro. The Velcro. So like when people wear the shoes with like the Velcro on them, that is basically what your tight junctions are for your cells. Now, these cells in your intestines are really, really thin, and it's really easy for them to break apart due to stress or being in a really inflammatory state. But these short chain fatty acids allow for these tight junctions to stay really, really strong. These short chain fatty acids have also been shown to influence brain health by helping with the gut brain axis. So a lot of people don't know this, but when people say like, I feel it in my gut, or something just feels off, this is the gut brain axis that people are talking about without realizing that they're actually talking about it. So most of your serotonin is actually produced in your stomach, which is really interesting. And that allows you to feel good because that is like a happy, feel good hormone. And so it's been shown that when you produce these short chain fatty acids, you're able to produce neurotransmitters reduce things like anxiety, depression, and other neuroinflammatory conditions. So it's really important that you get in enough fiber, and it's recommended that you eat about 25 to 30 grams of fiber a day, which most people, especially in America, are not getting. And if they do get them, they come from heavily processed cereals and baked goods, which, if you guys have been listening to me for a while, I like to go whole foods based first and like as minimal processed foods as we can, because we want the true natural source of fiber and not some artificial form of fiber being put into your diet. So, another common trigger of gut dysbiosis is having low stomach acid. A lot of people think that they have too much stomach acid, so they'll take things like PPIs to like, or Tums, to suppress their stomach acid. But you actually need to have enough stomach acid to absorb your fat soluble vitamins, B12, and even make enzymes that help you break down protein. A lot of times when people say that they can't break down protein, it's because they don't have enough stomach acid, or they're like, oh, it just feels really heavy in my gut when I eat a lot of protein. They're probably really low in stomach acid. And when you have a decrease in stomach acid, what ends up happening is that you have this overgrowth of bacteria that is just sitting there. And this then causes you not to be able to absorb the nutrients that you need to feel good in your body. So, those are the common triggers of gut dysbiosis. Other things could also be having a lot of stress, which could there influence your like low stomach acid. And then also taking things like birth control. These are all things that could cause gut dysbiosis. But gut dysbiosis could be more than just you getting like constipation or diarrhea, or just feeling like you feel super bloated. This could also be due to like skin issues. You could, if you have acne or rosacea or yeast infections or fatigue, headaches, even blood sugar dysregulation, this could all be caused by your gut. Because again, what you absorb is how you feel and move in your body. Now, um, a common issue that people have with gut dysbiosis is something called SIBO. You may have heard it as small intestinal bacteria overgrowth. Typically, when people get diagnosed with this, they do a little like breath test to be diagnosed with SIBO. A long time ago, a lot of people just kind of felt like this was the diagnosis that you were given if they were like, I don't know why you have gut issues, but you have gut issues. And this is typically with someone who has a lot of bloating. They have a depletion in nutrients and poor movement in your digestive system. So when the food isn't moving in your body and you have low stomach acid, it's almost like, again, imagine that you were eating the food and then like in your small intestine in the tube, your food is just stuck there. It's just stuck there fermenting and not moving, and it needs to get out of there. The body doesn't want something to stay in there. It just wants to be able to absorb the nutrients that it needs and then let it go. But with SIBO, it kind of just sits there like a rock. And this can cause um, you to not feel very good, and you just feel bloated and you feel fatigued because you're not absorbing the nutrients that you need. And this is often a sign of a deeper imbalance that is typically treated with antibiotics. But again, like I said, antibiotics kill all the bacteria in your gut. And what you actually need are the beneficial bacteria in your body. So if you're constantly just taking antibiotic after antibiotic because you have SIBO, this is doing more harm than good because it's killing all the bacteria, especially if you even built up some good bacteria in your body, it's going to kill all of it. And then you're kind of starting back starting back from scratch, and that's not really helping the situation. And this idea came from the hygiene hypothesis that in the late like 1950s, Professor David Storn had was wondering why like some British children were having hay fever and eczema, and he found out that there was an increase in this in hay fever and eczema post the industrial like revolution and stuff. And so he took 17,000 children from birth to 21, and he kind of just analyzed like which ones were more common to have hay fever, which ones were more common to have eczema. And he found that children with larger families tend to have less of these issues. And his thought was, okay, this might be because they were getting like infections early in childhood. So their body was slowly able to adapt to those infections that were around them. And he found that in like richer households, they tended to have more hygiene. And so they tended to have more disease due to being cleaner. And then in 2003, there was another study based off that hypothesis that showed that there was a lack of exposure of ancient organisms like parasites that are responsible for a lot of modern plagues that we have today. And so it's back to this idea of like, we want to be so clean all the time, and we just think the reason that someone is having gut issues is because their gut is not clean enough, which couldn't be further from the truth. If you have a child right now, or even yourself, and you're constantly just trying to clean, 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 or you're with a ton of cleaning products all the time, it's important for you to get outside in nature, get in the dirt. I know that sounds like super cheesy, but like, get in the dirt, get a little messy, and it's okay. Granted, yes, like if someone is sick, you don't want to be like giving all your gut bugs or all your like bacteria that you have to someone else, but your body needs to be able to adapt to these pathogens in a slow exposure. And then when you get really, really sick, then it's not this big hit to your body. We need to be able to adapt to things that come to our body and be strong enough for that. So that's what gut dysbiosis is. Now, leaky gut is something different. Leaky gut is this idea that, like I said, those tight junctions that are between your stomach cell or your intestinal cells basically start to get bigger and bigger holes. I want you to think of your gut as a fishing net. So it lets really small things in, but it doesn't let the big things go through. You want to catch all the fish that you can, but you don't want to pick up like all the rocks that are in the bottom of the ocean. With leaky gut, these holes in the net get really, really big and allow for like other toxins and undigested food to go into the bloodstream. And these can cause things like autoimmune issues, chronic inflammation, nutrient deficiencies, and food sensitivities. So if you feel like, oh my goodness, I feel like I can only eat a small portion of foods, it's probably because you're dealing with something like leaky gut, because your body wants to keep all the food in the tube. You basically have a tube from your mouth to your butthole, and all of your food is supposed to stay in there to be absorbed and then for you to pass it through when you go to the bathroom. But what ends up happening when you have leaky gut is some of those food particles are going into your bloodstream, and your body's going on this like fight or flight mode of like, oh my goodness, there's a foreign invader, even though you know cognitively that like I'm just eating my chicken and broccoli. But when your body doesn't know that, like, oh, this is just chicken and broccoli, it just knows these aren't my common blood cells, so we need to go and attack it. So the next time it sees that, then it's going to freak out again and may cause things like eczema or psoriasis or just bloating and stuff like that. So that's where leaky gut is a little bit different than dysbiosis, but they can be hand in hand in the process. And this is commonly caused by like your diet. If you're eating a lot of processed foods or foods really high in sugar and alcohol, if you have dysbiosis because your body is already stressed, and so it's really easy for that inflammation due to the stress to break down those tight junctions. And then if you're taking a lot of NSAIDs, if you pop ibuprofen like crazy, this can actually be damaging to your gut and cause things like leaky gut. If you have a lot of stress going on, if you're dealing with chronic disease, this can also cause leaky gut. So it's important to be taking care of your body. If you are dealing with gut issues, I will say it may be helpful when you go and exercise. I know a lot of people say like the anabolic window, you need to eat within a certain time. People with gut issues, it would be more beneficial for you to wait a little bit longer before you went and like ate food, because when you're going and exercising, your gut is more permeable, and it's those your food could easily pass through your gut a little bit easier. So wait a little bit longer till you actually go and eat after you exercise, and you might find that some of your issues aren't popping up as much. Or then when like if you're not even dealing with gut issues, this could help prevent those gut issues. So you could probably eat within like 30 minutes to an hour, but I would almost push it a little bit to an hour if nothing else is going on. That maybe if you're dealing with hormonal issues, then maybe I might say like that's going to take more that's going to be a higher importance than you needing to be like I need to wait an hour till I eat my food. But just keep that in mind if you are dealing with gut issues and you do high intensity exercise, especially if you do things like HIIT workouts or go for a really long run or an intense run or do sprints and stuff like that, and you're sweating bullets like crazy, it might be beneficial for you to wait a little bit to eat, or eat something that is definitely whole foods based and not like a protein shake that is high in like artificial sweeteners and stuff like that. So, signs that your gut might need some help are if you're bloated after meals, if you've had frequent antibiotic use, if you have any sort of food sensitivity, skin issues, brain fog, or fatigue, or if you feel worse even after eating healthy foods. This could all be a sign that your gut is off base. Now, I know most of this podcast has mostly been me talking about like if your gut is off, if your gut is off, and I want to give you something to actually work on to help you heal your gut and start supporting your gut. And this all is in with 3 R's. It's just 3 R's. You just have to remember the 3 R's. It's remove, replace, repair. So first we got to remove the processed foods, the artificial sweeteners, the alcohol, and the unnecessary medication. So things like NSAIDs, antibiotics that you don't need, or steroids that you don't need. Now, I know that can seem like a lot, and depending on where you're coming from listening to this podcast, it could seem really overwhelming to get rid of all of these things all at once, because maybe you're looking at the back of your food label and you're like, oh my goodness, half of the things in my pantry have artificial sweeteners in them, but I love the food that I'm eating. Remove one thing at a time. Focus on prioritizing protein and getting the protein through more like from like meats and eggs and things like that that aren't in packaged foods. Start there. And a lot of the times that knocks off those artificial sweeteners. Unless you're chewing a ton of gum, then maybe think about switching the gum that you're eating, and that could be the next thing. Then if you drink a lot of alcohol, maybe first start with the processed foods, start with the artificial sweeteners, and then if you're drinking 3 times a week, go down to 2. Do this one thing at a time. And then as you remove these foods, ask yourself, how am I feeling? How is my digestion? How is my energy? How is my sleep? And then you can start associating with, when I don't eat these foods, I feel this way. And you can slowly start making a conscious choice of, would I rather my gut feel off and be okay with those consequences? Or do I want the alcohol or the processed food and have that in my diet and deal with the consequences of being a little bit more fatigue or my gut being off? So that's the first R. The second R is replace. So we removed the things, now we need to replace it with something else. And that's going to be your whole natural food. So making sure you're getting in enough protein, making sure you're getting in enough carbohydrates, enough fat, and enough veggies. These veggies are really important. You need to get in enough fiber so you can create those short chain fatty acids. It's recommended that you get 25 to 30 grams per day and per week to get 30 different types of plants within your week. Now, I know that kind of seems like a lot. Like, how am I supposed to get 30 different types of plants in my diet? I remember reading this and being like, how in the world am I supposed to get 30 different types of plants in a week? And the thing that helps here is herbs count. Herbs and seasonings count. So maybe you love going to Trader Joe's. I know I do. And I love going to the area with all the different seasonings, especially because they're like seasonings are in those like cute little jars. And even though they probably add an extra dollar because of the cute glass jars, I like to go in there and be like, what's the new seasoning that I could get today? Or what's a fancy little glass I could get today? And grab one of those and make it really fun. And you slowly start adding to your little herb seasoning cabinet. And now you got a ton of different seasonings you can pick from. Or maybe you really like tea, and this is your opportunity to get your herbs and seasonings in, to get all the different types of fiber into your diet. And you can get that through tea. So it's not just all physically eating different types of vegetables, because we all know that sometimes it's hard to get those veggies in. And at least you can count on the tea that you're drinking or the herbs and seasonings that you're putting on your food and make it a little bit easier. Now, I will say, if you are barely eating any fiber whatsoever right now, do not go 360 and start eating a ton of fiber, because you will probably be really bloated. You will probably be really constipated and not feel good and be like, why in the world am I now eating all this fiber? And Becca told me I was going to feel better. Start slow. And as you slowly start adding more fiber into your diet, slowly start drinking more water because that will help the fiber absorb and pass through your body if needed. Also, you could think about doing the 1, 2, 3 veggie rule. So at breakfast, I have some sort of veggie. At lunch, I have some sort of veggie. And at dinner, I have one sort of veggie. Or sometimes, I know for me, it's hard to get veggies in the morning and breakfast. And so I'll just add my extra veggie at dinner. And that can all roll in for you to get enough veggies within your day. Also, think about adding fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, Greek yogurt, and kefir, adding at least 1 tablespoon a day. I know I really love kefir, but if you can't handle dairy, then things like sauerkraut and kimchi are a really good option. And then also making sure that you're getting in enough omega-3 foods, so things like fatty fish. I've been really loving salmon recently, probably because it's like the summertime and it's just a nice substance that I could eat, but then also not feel super heavy with. If like, some days I don't feel like eating ground beef every day. So I will go for my fatty fish. Things like chia seeds and walnuts are also really great options that you can use to get in enough omega 3s. But I highly recommend at least getting 1 to 2 servings of fatty fish a day to get, or fatty fish a week, to get in enough omega 3s. The last thing would be is repair. So we want to repair our gut lining. We're doing all the great things about removing and replacing the food, but we still need to repair that gut lining if it needs support, especially if there's breakage in those tight junctions. And so getting in enough prebiotics, which you're getting from getting in enough fiber and getting all those different types of plants into your diet, getting in enough probiotics from things like yogurt, but then also if you need to supplement, I highly recommend the seed supplement or probiotic. I am not affiliated with it. It's just the type of probiotic that I personally take and I find benefit with. If you are taking a probiotic, though, I highly recommend making sure you can get a probiotic that is shelf stable because, like I said, your stomach is filled with acid. You want it to have a really low pH so that you can have a lot of acid in your stomach to break things down. But your probiotic needs to get past all that acid to then actually get into your small intestine where most of your gut bugs are and where most of the absorption happens in your small intestine. I want you to think about it right now. If your probiotic has to be in a refrigerator where that is a more basic solution or a basic environment, how is it going to survive an acidic environment through your stomach to then get into your small intestine? So it's really important that you get a probiotic that can actually survive a more hostile environment like being outside the refrigerator so that it can pass through your gut. The last thing is to make sure that you're getting in enough short chain fatty acids, which you would be getting through by eating enough fiber. And then if you're still having a hard time, or maybe you're going through things like chemotherapy, surgery, or having excessive radiation, or maybe you're dealing with some really severe leaky gut, adding in a glutamine supplement, which is an amino acid that helps your cells make protein and energy, can help seal that gut lining a little bit more. You would take about 5 to 15 grams daily to help support your gut. And then, like I said, making sure you add in those fermented foods and healthy fats. But then, as I had mentioned before, stress plays a big role on your gut. I know even myself hates hearing the word like manage your stress, but making sure that you get in some time where you can just calm down and breathe and you're not in a rush state will help your gut not only be able to absorb all the nutrients that you're eating, but also stay strong and not break down. Stress can also come from you not sleeping enough. Your body fully repairs when you sleep. And so making sure you're getting in enough sleep, getting enough hydration, making sure you're actually moving your body. It's really important for you to move your body, not only for blood sugar regulation, but also so that you can actually have movement within your gut. I know there's like a ton of muscles that surround your gut, like your psoas muscle, and that allows for that motion in your abdomen to actually move the food that is in your small intestine and your large intestine to get all the way out. I know for me, if I'm like sitting on an airplane or I am in the car all day due to like travel, it doesn't feel good. And it's hard to like have an actual good bowel movement when you've been sitting all day. So making sure you at least get in a minimum of 30 minutes of movement a day. It doesn't have to be intense exercise. It could just be a 10-minute walk 3 times a day will help with your gut. Getting outside, like going for a walk, is also really beneficial for your gut lining, because we're all set in this circadian rhythm with our body. And that basically tells your body, okay, we wake up at this time, we eat at this time, and we go to bed at this time. And so then it has its time where it's like, okay, I know I eat at this time. So then I'm producing all the digestive enzymes that I need, because I know she's about to sit down and she's going to eat. And then I can start breaking foods down, absorbing foods, because I know I'm about to eat at this time. But that starts with you going outside in the morning and getting some light in your eyes, so that it knows, oh, it's morning time, we're about to eat breakfast. So that is the all encompassing of your gut. And your gut is more than just digestion. It encompasses your immune system, your energy, your mental clarity, and even your hormones. And I just want you to know that healing doesn't happen overnight. Small, consistent changes will make big change. So if you are having a hard time removing things from your diet, stop focusing so much on the removing part. Maybe you need to jump to the replace part and start just adding in whole foods, starting with your protein and then moving to the fiber, and figuring out what will most benefit you, but also what you feel like you can start working on yourself. And then slowly you can change and go to a different goal and add something in, like 30 minutes of movement a day. Whatever you feel like you can commit to will actually help you make change. So if you ever need anything, just make sure you reach out to me at Becca Ann Wellness on Instagram, or email me at Becca Babbles podcast@gmail.com. I'd be happy to answer any of your questions. But with all that being said, I can't wait to babble with you next time. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Becca Babbles podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, the best thing that you can do is leave a 5-star rating and review on Apple Podcast, Spotify, or any other listening platform of your choosing. If you want to learn more about me, you can do that by following me on Instagram at Becca Ann Wellness, or by checking out my blog, freebies, offers, and newsletter on my website at beccaannwellness.com. If you want to share the love of the podcast, you can do that by taking a screenshot and sharing it on social media and tagging me and the podcast at Becca Ann Wellness and using the hashtag Becca Babbles Podcast. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I can't wait to babble with you next time.